Most 16-year-olds are thinking about their GCSEs. Max Dowman is starting for Arsenal. Let that sink in for a second. While his peers are figuring out school, exams, and what they want to do with their lives, this kid is pulling on a first-team shirt at one of the most scrutinized football clubs on the planet, walking out in front of tens of thousands of people, being asked to perform at a level that most professional footballers never reach in their entire careers. And the terrifying part? He looks like he belongs there. Not in the way that young players sometimes do. Grateful, nervous, trying hard, hanging on. He looks like he belongs there the way that the truly special ones do. Like the occasion is smaller than he is. Like the pressure everyone else feels in that environment simply doesn't reach him in the same way. Arsenal have produced players like this before. Fabregas, Wilshere, players who arrived so young and so fully formed that the club had no choice but to trust them with everything. But those players arrived in a different era, a different league, a different world. Max Dowman is happening right now, in the Premier League, in front of your eyes. And if the people closest to this story are right, the coaches, the analysts, the academy staff, the ones who've seen hundreds of talented teenagers and learned to tell the difference between good and genuinely special, then what we are watching right now is not a promising youngster finding his feet. It's not another academy talent making headlines. It's something far more dangerous, because if Arsenal are right, and if the people closest to this story are right, then football isn't watching the rise of Max Dowman. It's watching the beginning of the Dowman Era. Now, before we go any further, there's something you need to understand about Wonder Kids. Football has a complicated relationship with them. Every generation, the game produces a teenager who makes everyone stop and ask, is this the one? Is this the player who changes everything? And sometimes, they're right. Fabregas was the one. Rooney was the one, a teenager who announced himself to the world and then spent the next 15 years making that announcement look conservative. But for every Rooney, there are 10 others, players who carried the weight of a city's expectation before they were old enough to drive. Players who were handed a narrative before they'd written a single line of it themselves. That's the thing about football's relationship with potential. It doesn't wait, it doesn't protect, it doesn't care whether you're ready, it just watches and judges and moves on. Max Dowman is inside that machine now. And the question, the only question that matters, is whether he's built to survive it. Let me tell you what the people who've watched him closest are actually saying. Not the headlines, not the social media takes, the coaches, the analysts, the people who sit in cold stands with notepads and evaluate hundreds of teenagers every season and almost never get excited. They're excited because there's a version of a talented teenager that football produces regularly. The kid who's technically polished, physically developed early, comfortable in controlled situations. Football is full of those players. Most of them plateau at 22 and spend the rest of their careers being described as good professionals. And then there's the other version. The player who makes good decisions under pressure before he's learned to be afraid of getting them wrong. The player whose footballing brain operates faster than the game around him. The player who, in moments that would freeze most teenagers, looks almost relaxed. That's what they say about Dowman. Not that he's good for his age, not that he has potential, that he plays football like someone who's already done it 100 times at the highest level. That's different. That's rare. There's a specific moment, and I want you to picture this, where a player receives the ball under pressure with two defenders closing in a game that matters, in a stadium that's loud, and he has maybe a second and a half to make a decision. A second and a half. Most teenagers in that moment take the safe option. They play backwards, they play safe, because self-preservation is human, and nobody blames them for it. Dowman doesn't play backwards, he plays the right ball, forwards, with weight, with timing. Like he'd seen the situation before the ball even arrived. And that's the part that makes the people watching quietly exchange glances. Because technique can be coached, fitness can be built, work rate can be demanded, but that that relationship with pressure, that comfort in chaos. You either have it or you don't. He has it. Arsenal fans have spent a long time waiting for something to believe in. Not just winning, they've had winning. They know what that feels like. They've had invincibility and title races and nights in Europe that stay with you forever. What they've been waiting for is a player who makes them feel the way those eras made them feel. Not just a good footballer, a symbol. A player who represents something bigger than their position, their stats, their contract. And that's not a pressure that's fair to put on a teenager. It never is. But football doesn't ask whether it's fair. Highbury produced those players. The Emirates has seen them walk through its doors. And every time a young player starts to show the signs, really show them, that same energy starts to gather. The whispers, the comparisons, the weight of everything that came before. And now those whispers have found Max Dowman. Here's the thing about pressure in football. It doesn't arrive gradually. It doesn't politely knock on the door and ask whether you're ready. It arrives all at once. One performance, one game, one moment where everything you are is suddenly visible to everyone watching. And the judgment isn't just about whether you played well. It's about whether you looked like someone who deserves to be there. Football is brutal in that way. Ravel Morrison was once described by Sir Alex Ferguson as the most talented young player he'd ever seen at Manchester United. More talented than Giggs, more talented than Scholes. A player who looked at 16 like he was already beyond the league he was playing in. Most people reading that name right now are trying to remember where his career ended up. That's not an exception. That's the story of 100 players who had everything football asked for on the surface, and then discovered that the hardest part wasn't the football at all. It was everything else. The noise, the expectation, the version of yourself that exists in other people's minds, completely disconnected from who you actually are. The gap between what people say you'll become and what you actually feel inside. That gap has ended careers. Not bad form, not injury. That gap. And Max Dowman is standing on the edge of it right now. So why are we here? Why does this particular teenager feel different to the ones who came before him? Because there's evidence. Real evidence. Not potential and promise and projections. Actual evidence. In games that mattered. Against players who weren't interested in letting a teenager look impressive. In moments where the correct response was to play safe. And he chose the right option instead. Watch the clip. Watch what he does when the ball arrives with pressure on. Watch the decision-making. Watch where his head is before the ball reaches him. Watch what happens to the defenders around him when he accelerates. This isn't a 16-year-old trying to be good. This is a 16-year-old who is good, already, right now. And that's the thing that separates the players who become what everyone hoped from the ones who disappear. The ones who make it, they're not becoming the player. They're already that player. The rest of it is just time. There was a night, and I want to be careful how I describe this because I don't want to overwrite what the footage already says better than any script can. There was a night where Max Dowman did something that stopped a stadium, not because of the scale of it, not because of the occasion, because of the ease of it. There's a particular kind of genius in sport that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream or celebrate. It just does what needed to be done and then gets back into position. And the people watching, the 60,000 people watching, feel something shift. It's the feeling of witnessing something you've seen before, but not in a player this young. Not at this point in a career. Not like this. And in that moment, for Arsenal, for that specific group of supporters, something opened up. Not certainty, but something closer to it than they'd felt in a long time. The feeling that the future had a face. Every era in football has a beginning. You don't know it's a beginning when you're living through it. You don't get a notification. You don't see it coming in the way you imagine you would. You just, at some point, look back and you realize that was the moment. That night, that game, that teenager in that shirt, making that decision in the way only he could make it. The Fabregas era at Arsenal had a beginning. The Bergkamp era had a beginning. The Thierry Henry era, one of the greatest individual runs in Premier League history, had a beginning. A moment where a player arrived and something irrevocably changed. Football is already asking whether we're living through another one. Whether this quiet, composed, impossibly talented teenager from the academy is the player who defines what the next chapter of this club looks like. Whether the name that the coaches said quietly to each other in empty training grounds is the name that eventually gets spoken alongside those others. Whether this, right now, is the beginning, I'm not going to tell you he makes it, because I don't know that. Nobody does. Football is not a script. It doesn't follow narrative logic. It doesn't reward talent proportionally or protect potential carefully. It breaks players without warning and occasionally builds them into things that shouldn't be possible. What I will tell you is this. The signs are there. The signs that matter, not the ones that get written in newspaper columns or generate social media engagement. The ones that the people who've seen 100 talents and been right about 3 of them are quietly nodding at. He is that good. And somewhere in North London, in an academy that has been building players like this for decades, a 16-year-old boy is doing what he's always done. Playing football like he was built for it, like nothing else was ever an option, like the pressure doesn't reach him in the same way it reaches everyone else. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's the whole point. Every legend has a chapter 1. Most people miss it. You didn't.